Ambassador, is it realistic to expect that the first EU-North Macedonia Intergovernmental Conference, which would mean de facto the start of the accession talks, can be held by December this year?
Well, in order to have this intergovernmental conference, we need to have a common position, negotiating position within the European Union. We have been negotiating now for some time. I think we are restarting, member states are restarting now discussions this week on the basis of the paper that was prepared by the Commission. Once they agree, then the intergovernmental conference will be scheduled. I heard German presidency being very convincing and determined to have this conference before the end of the year, when they're still presiding. So I think that I can say, to answer the question directly, I can say that I hope, and I think that we can realistically expect, it seems we can realistically expect that this conference will be held before the end of the year.
What is your position on Bulgaria's demands related to defining the negotiating framework for North Macedonia?
Well, as I said, the negotiating framework is still being discussed among member states. This is internal discussions, and it wouldn't be appropriate for me to comment on the positions of any member state within these close discussions that we have. What is important for me are common positions that come out of these discussions. The common positions that we have so far is the one from March. Well, all member states, including Bulgaria, were in favor of opening negotiations with North Macedonia. So this is, at the moment, I think I shouldn't go beyond that.
If you were in a position to be Prime Minister of North Macedonia, what would you focus your energy on and your efforts in the coming months and years in order to ensure fastest possible integration of the country to the European Union?
Well, luckily for you and for me, I'm not in that position. I think that your politicians know the best what needs to be done. European integration is not a process that is separate or that stands on its own. All we want to do, all we expect is that you put your house in order. That means that you provide a better life to the citizens, that young people will not be forced to leave the country, that there is a respect for the rule of law, there is protection of environment, there is protection of vulnerable people. That is what is European integration. The same thing as your citizens actually want. What European integration is just an additional engine that helps the country do that faster. And you know, as a rule, I think the process goes faster if you have unity in the country, if everybody is pushing in the same direction. So in that sense, I think it's important, since all the parties in the Parliament are supporting European integration, I think it will be important that there is a certain unity created for this strategic goal of joining European Union. So I think that's what I guess the government should focus on. And then I think you should make it, one thing is to have a wish of entering European Union. The other one is if you make that as a goal, and you're determined to reach that goal. You know, if you just wish and you wait that it will happen, it might not happen. So you really need to be determined, committed. You have to engage all forces, all talent that you have in the country. And then I think the success is more guaranteed. United, I think you're stronger and you will move faster.
Do you see any pressing priorities at the moment?
The pressing priorities is always the rule of law. In every negotiations that we open, we see the rule of law as the most important. We don't have separate priorities from priorities of your citizens. And I would expect for your citizens the rule of law, the feeling of the rule of law is a priority. The feeling of equality, of everybody being equal in front of the law, I think this is probably the priority.
Having in mind political situation in North Macedonia, having new old majority, new old government, do you expect or can Macedonia catch up with Montenegro and Serbia that are, let's say, far ahead in the EU integration process?
I think you can go very fast. I believe that you can move very fast. It depends on you and depends on us. On our side, what we need is internal discussion about the future of European Union, the discussion that is going to start under the German presidency now, and it will last for a year and a half until the French presidency in 2022, the first half of 2022. This is when we are going to reflect on the EU 2.0, on the future of European Union, given different visions of Europe. And that is important also because we need to sort our house before we can accept new tenants, let's say, on our side. On your side, it also depends how committed, determined about your team, how is going to be prepared for negotiations, how eager is going to be to implement everything that will need to be done. Negotiations, as we all know, are not so much negotiations, they're more, and the country that is negotiating needs to implement the conditionalities to adjust to the EU laws, EU directives, EU values, and so on. So on your side depends how eager, how much you'll be prepared to reach the goal, rather than just wishing that it's going to happen.
Your work as an ambassador here ends in a week. If you had to single out most encouraging and most disappointing things that you have witnessed in the past 4 years, what would they be?
Fortunately, there are more encouraging points than disappointing ones. But on disappointing one, I think the most disappointing one relates to the rule of law, specifically to Special Prosecutor Janeva being involved in racket case. I think this was, for us, for me also personally, maybe the biggest disappointment, shock in a way as well. And I felt with many citizens of this country of being betrayed in the trust that we put into the person herself. But the rule of law is not only about, I mean, the disappointment in the rule of law is not only about disappointment with Special Prosecutor. It goes further. Disappointment with perception of the rule of law with among citizens here, because the rule of law is not only the courts. The rule of law is also that you don't smoke inside the restaurants if it's not allowed. The rule of law is also that you don't park on the street wherever you want. So I think that's disappointing for me. When I see cars parked on the bike lanes, that's the rule of law. And so I think here, that would be the biggest disappointment, let's say. The notion about the rule of law, the mentality. The second one is the most encouraging one, or the positive one. I think that would relate to the youth of your country. I met many, or I talked with several young people, and the energy, the activism, the social responsibility, if you want, their realistic observation of the problems, their engagement, I think were really enlightening to me. And that's why also I was very happy to see high school students and high school association demonstrating that they want to go back to school. I don't want to say that they're right or wrong, but I was happy to see that they are mobilized, that they are, that there is activism there, and that they want to raise their voice so that the society hears them. I think this is very encouraging. I think it's very healthy for the society when you have young people like that.
Thank you very much for this interview for 360 Degrees, and Ambassador, I would like to wish you success and luck in your future endeavors.
Thank you very much. I had a great time here. I have to tell you, I'm leaving a very different country from the one that I entered. So I'm optimistic for the immediate future, as we've talked about, but also for a more distant one. Thank you.
Thank you again.